Rostermania Part 2. It has the potential to be crazier than the first one prior to CWL Seattle. At least that's the way it's shaping up to be. Since we were just talking about Optic, I say we stick with that team. As we discussed before, they're making a change. But the question is, Maven, how does this change impact the squad?
Oh, God. All right. So we don't have anything confirmed yet. Obviously, nothing's gone through League Ops. Could that change before the show goes live? Who the hell knows? But it seems there's still a lot in the works. One thing that I feel pretty certain of, Formal will be off this team. This is Scump's team. It has been his team. I've talked about in the previous section how they have bumped heads a lot. I've been out with him at times, you know, at a bar, at a restaurant afterwards. You know, Formal's off hanging out with his girlfriend. The other three are together. He's become the scapegoat kind of at times, along with Karma. So I think he is absolutely off this team. Where it gets a little bit trickier, so obviously we had the COD burner leak, which I can confirm some of it's true, not necessarily all of it, but I have heard that they were trying to go after John and Octane. But what I think becomes interesting here is Karma's sort of, I guess, in a dilemma with regards to all of this, because if you think about it, like, think if you did that trade. If you went Octane and John out to Optic and Karma and Formal out, that LG team makes zero sense, because you then have Formal, then you have JCap, Slacked, and Karma. JCap, Slack, Karma, that's not really a great slang trio when you talk about the combination of Flex and SMG. Where does Karma make sense to go? I don't think Rise doesn't want to make a change to bring him on the team. Faze, it doesn't really make sense to me. Karma doesn't necessarily fit into any of these top teams for me. So a big question when you're thinking about all the trades and all the possibilities, like, where does Karma go is where I'm confused about if he ultimately comes off the roster. But the only thing I'm really sure of with Optic right now is I am positive inside that they are absolutely making a change. And then the trickle-down effect begins, and I think that's what we're going to start to highlight more and more, Ben.
I have one thing to mention. Obviously, you say, where would Karma go? Would he work with JCap? Guaranteed COD Champs final, is it not? You look at those two players, I mean, maybe some magic could happen.
It's a weird roster,
it's
though,
very,
right?
Very weird, very weird. But, I mean, you talk about what changes could happen. Scump, you kind of touched on it. Kind of Optic Gaming is his brand now, if you will. He's the captain of that squad.
It's been his team, yeah.
He's not going anywhere. Krim, doubtful. Don't think he's going to go anywhere either. So you have the other two players left. Formal leaving. I feel like it makes sense. Again, that Scump Formal argument we kind of touched about at the very beginning of the show, how they haven't gone on for years. I think this is finally that time where he departs. Where he goes, I don't know, because personally, I'm going to be honest with you, I don't think his stock is as high as it has been in the past year. So I know you're going to disagree with me when I say that, but we haven't seen the Formal-like performance that we've seen for the past 3 years on World War II. That is a fact. I value Slasher, I value Octane, way above I value Formal. So where he goes, I think it comes down to a direct trade. I think it has to be AR for AR.
See, if I went personally, for me, now I'm curious what Joe thinks, but if I went, let's just say it was a one-person trade, Formal and Octane swap. I actually feel good about that trade on both sides of it. One, because if you're willing to do that trade, and maybe the reason we saw LG struggle a little bit in the past, let's say that was already on the radar, which we've heard talks of this may have started even before playoffs. So if these talks were in the works, maybe Octane's not on his game, he's thinking about leaving. And if there was one person, if I was a Scump, a Krim, whoever, that I would not want to play if I were removed from a team, it is Formal. A lot of you guys see him as like this loving, happy, great guy. Oh, that is not the Formal that I knew back in the Halo days. Like, he is going to want to destroy Optic Gaming. I think if that was the trade, I feel good about it if I was LG. I feel good about it if I was Optic. I think that's kind of a win-win, actually, personally.
I'm not with you on that. I think in that case, I think Optic Gaming wins the trade. I think you got Octane, who this year at least has been more valuable. You talk about future.
Formal's been back and forth, though, in the AR. Who's been the best AR the last 3 years?
The last 3 years?
Overall, if you pick that 3-year window.
What game are we playing?
No, I'm saying.
All right, but what game are we playing
listen
now?
to me. If you pick the 3-year window,
Great,
who's been the best AR
Formal.
like in the history of COD for the most part? It has been Formal.
You can say Formal, but we're not playing a game for the past 3 years, Clint.
Bro,
wake up. We're playing a new game. We're
We're
playing World War II. It's a brand new game.
Bro, he had like, what did he have?
His stock
did he have the
isn't
number
high.
one KD? He had the number one KD when you take a look.
His stock is not high as it used to be.
Maybe not, but like it's
Okay.
like a sliver.
So
it's like a sliver.
To
I'd
that
be
point,
fine with that trade.
I value Octane more. But the
I
question,
get that. No, that's fair. That's fair. But I think I'd be okay with this trade.
the big question for me is, where does Karma go?
No,
What
that
does
is.
he do?
I have no idea. I have no clue. No clue.
I'm lost for. I think him and Jacob on the same team. COD Champs final.
That's the big questions. Where does Karma go? I think I agree with you guys, right? The one-for-one trade, Formal and Octane, I think that both teams would be happy. For Luminosity, you get a pumped-up Formal Clinton. You hit the nail on the head. Very scary. But, Ben, Also, Octane has been the rival to Formal. As soon as Formal last year, when he was dominating Infinite Warfare, he wanted to play Octane as much as possible in 8s. He was the only guy that could give them a challenge, the only guy that could challenge 1v1 gunfights against Formal. Plus, again, you get that sort of honeymoon period coming from Optic Gaming, right? Scump wants to hang out with his teammates. After the events, Octane's a guy that he can hang out with, have a good time with. I'm both going to give you guys 2 points for that one, just because, again, so much Optic Gaming, you have to go back and forth. But now we're going to get into a juicier one. Luminosity. This is another team who, once again, you just talked about it. This is a squad that has been really tied into these rumors. What impact will a team change have on the rest of their season?
I think it's an interesting one. I really do. You look at the likes of John, who for me has been one of the best SMG players. He's just electrifying to watch sometimes, especially, you see him on Valkyrie, you see him in Search and Destroy, London Docks, how versatile he is, his sniping, his aggression that you get to see. He has a lot of stock in my mind. He really does, which is why I think, Clint, you obviously mentioned that two-way trade that could potentially have come through.
Well, that was the rumored one we
John.
saw,
Yeah. That was the big rumor, and I'm sat there thinking, okay, that's a good trade. Like, if you're up to gaming, you're happy with that trade. You're getting John as well.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, if LG lose John, what do they then have to do? You're looking to fill the boots of a very, very talented SMG player. I mean, there's not many that can fill that role. I mean, you look at maybe Zuma, maybe an Attach comes into play, maybe a Kenny from TK. I think if he was to kind of depart, it's tough to fill those shoes. And obviously, we mentioned Calmer. Does he fit in the LG squad? I don't think he does. I really don't. I don't think it's a good fit for the squad. It's just, what would you do to replace John if John did leave? Now, obviously, we don't know if John is staying or John is leaving. The one-to-one trade, though, I think that ultimately makes the most sense for LG. I wouldn't really tinker with much else.
I tend to agree with you from the sense that, yeah, if it's a one-for-one, you feel kind of good about it. How else could they upgrade, like, if they wanted to? Let's say, and again, just to clarify, we are not sure what's going to happen. It's just we're trying to talk through what kind of makes sense and based on the rumors that we've seen. But if the Octane and Formal deal does happen and they wanted to improve, where does it come from? Because, I mean, you don't replace John. He's one of the best players in the game. Absolutely not. Cap, I think, has been a very strong flex. The only upgrades you could really look at for, like, let's just lump him and Slack together, because those would be the two you think about dealing. God, maybe somebody like a Zuma from Faze or a Gunless from Rise. I don't think these are going to happen. I'm just trying to speak out loud. Like, those are the only upgrades you would make. So I think you kind of just sit pretty if that's the deal. Because I think we talked about Nameless and I on the previous show. Like, what teams do we think are going to make changes they don't need to? And LG and Optic are the two that popped up. Like, they didn't have to make changes from a talent perspective. It was at their core there was something broken. For LG, they may not have a choice. I don't think they should have changed. I don't think they necessarily wanted to change. I think they're going to have to change. And if it ends up being a one-for-one, you're good. If you want to search beyond that, I don't know. Like, Kenny, Zuma, Gunless come to mind, but can you get any of those guys?
I don't think it's worth it. I think that's the key, right? It's not worth making a change.
I think they can win tournaments if they have Formal just in place of Octane. I still think they're capable of continuous top threes and winning tournaments. Absolutely.
Is continuous top threes good enough, though? That's a big question.
No, it's true.
I'm going to be honest with you, Clint. I'm going to give a bonus point here to Ben. I'm going to give him 2 points.
What?
1 point to Clint. The reason is it's because you list out. You were going the extra mile. You said, this is it. If you're Luminosity, how do you solidify yourself as the best team in the game? I don't really think they can do it. They can do it. You're forgetting about Formal and Gunless. That relationship that those two players have. Do you replace JCap? Maybe not. Do you replace JCap for Gunless? Absolutely.
Yes.
Solidify yourself as the best team. Go after that world championship.
I agree with you. And, like, I guess I'd go further down that rabbit hole if Rise hadn't just won the tournament. And maybe it's possible, but with Rise winning, I find it so hard to believe that the Gunless thing may still come into play. As soon as they won, it kind of went out the window with Optic for me, and it kind of went out the window, period. They look so good. But yes, if you could get Gunless, any team, if you can get Gunless, even if you're competing in a different esport, you take Gunless. Like, he's been that good. He's incredible.
One thing that's true across time in Call of Duty esports, when Rostermania comes around and Optic Gaming make a change, everything is up for debate. Every player will make a move if they need to. It's nuts.
Imagine if it was, if it was Formal, John, Slacked, Gunless, okay.
That's the team you think is winning for the rest of the year.
Have fun.
That's just it. But as you guys both said, I have to agree. John just so important to that Luminosity roster. I think that's big for them to hang on to him. But this next team, this is an interesting one. From winning Stage 1 playoffs to getting top 12, we have to talk about Faze. They avoided a team chase prior to CWL Seattle thanks to that win at Stage 1 playoffs. But it seems like they may not stick together for further longer. What impact will a change have for this team?
I think this is interesting because FaZe is a team that's been, God, we talked about before stage 1. I mentioned that I thought they needed a change. I thought about the fact, I was trying to think about the entire thing, like whether or not swapping replays out for Slasher when he was available made sense, or if the Zuma attached duo had run their course and maybe they make a change. I said both those things. A lot of people thought I was crazy. And if it wasn't for the Optic changes and maybe LG changes coming, FaZe would probably stay the same. But, you know, I mentioned Zuma previously because he's a really hot commodity right now. His stock has been very high in the past, but it might be higher right now than it's ever been. And teams are going to go after him. So will this FaZe roster maybe fall victim to sort of that domino effect, that trickle-down effect that's going to happen if Optic Gaming makes a change? I think they absolutely will. What would I target here? I'm still kind of torn, but I guess I still think, for me, you can get a minor upgraded AR. I think Replays has been strong, but if you can get a Slasher, Octane, Formal, or Methods, those are the 4 guys that I would try to take, and I think you improve this team.
I could not disagree with you more.
Okay.
Replays is a permanent part of that squad and should be. You should not look to upgrade their AR department. It's just unnecessary. It doesn't need to happen. Where it's interesting, though, you bring up the point about Zuma. If I'm FaZe management, I am holding on to him. I am not letting him go anywhere. He has proven again and again and again just how talented he is, not only just for the rest of this year, but for future Call of Duties as well. You want to make sure he really is a part of that Faze Clan organization going forward, that's for sure. You look at upgrades, how do you upgrade the squad? For me, I don't think there's much you can do. Priester has been phenomenal all year long. It came into the game and everyone kind of had a question mark over Priester. You know, FaZe make that trade and you're thinking, ooh, not too sure about that one. Well, guess what? He's proven to be very, very talented throughout the year and keeps on showing signs of improvement. I think the only way you can upgrade that squad, if you really had to, bear in mind, this is our stage 1 champs we're talking about here, who kind of went through a double best of 5, if you will. Like, it's weird to even consider these guys making a change.
And some luck. Let's talk about that luck in the first series. Yeah,
a little bit of luck.
A little bit of help.
A little bit of help does come through, but it is worth mentioning. There are stage 1 champs.
Yes.
End of the day, they won the biggest tournament of the year so far. They were consistent, probably one of the more consistent squads throughout the regular stage as well. Let's not forget that. It's just their open events have kind of been all over the place. So you're looking to improve them consistent-wise. That's been the key. And I mean, you look at FaZe over the years, I think it's the duo, Zuma Attach. I think maybe it's time. If you were to make a change, I think that's where the change comes from. I think you leave Replays and maybe Attach goes elsewhere. How high is his stock right now, though? That's the question.
See, Ben, you mentioned, like, how do they improve? I don't think FaZe right now, and I don't know for sure, because I'm not obviously in the inner workings of the contract, mumbo-jumbo,
right,
with different owners and stuff, but I don't know if this is a spot where FaZe is looking to improve, or FaZe is looking to hold on to what players they have and hope they don't get poached by other teams.
Agreed. I think it's
that's where I think it's at. So I think best case scenario, if you're FaZe, like, you hope you get to keep this same squad, because I got to think, depending on how this all breaks down with Optic, and then from that, is anyone safe when Optic Gaming comes a knocking?
No.
I don't know.
Definitely not. So we'll have to see what happens with FaZe. One part I think you guys both missed, Priesta. I feel like he is a key component to this roster.
Priesta.
When? When did you say Priesta?
I said Priester.
That is a guy who has,
with a big question mark, and has been phenomenal for the rest of the year. He's proven himself.
He definitely has, but nobody's talking about picking him up from that FaZe roster. That's a guy that any of these teams can go out. When you talk about how important that flex role is throughout this year, you have guys like Gunless, you have guys like Jacob. Priest has been there for FaZe. Maybe he is a candidate for some of these top teams. Sure. We'll have to wait and find out. In terms of points, I'm going to give 2 to Benson, 1 to Maven. Just going to go with it. I feel like Benny said it. I feel like Zuma.
I love Joe.
Where's Rich Campbell? Rich Campbell, let's get back in the show.
Deduct some points.
Listen, this is the thing. They were consistent throughout the stage. They won Stage 1 playoffs. But throughout the years, even in the prior years, who have been the key components for this FaZe roster? It's been Attach and Zuma. And I feel like that's where the inconsistencies come out from, whether it's their attitude when they play on a side stage or their attitude when they play on a main stage. It seems like those two play down to their opponents, and that's where their inconsistencies come from.